This is a News 8 special report.
Hi, everybody. We are following the latest information surrounding that deadly plane crash that happened earlier today.
Their eastern region. I'm based out of New Jersey.
The plane took off from Teterboro Airport in New Jersey. It was headed for Tweed New Haven Airport when it went down, hitting two houses on Charter Oak Avenue. As you can see, a press conference on the very latest is underway. It's going on at the Courtyard Marriott in New Haven. Let's listen in.
I mean, just the East Haven Police Department, New Haven Police Department, East Haven Fire, New Haven Fire, State Police, and again, I'm sure I missed somebody, but thank you all so much for all your help. And with that being said, we did receive a notification just before noon today, about 11:45 this morning, that an airplane that was traveling from Teterboro, New Jersey to New Haven, Connecticut, had crashed on approach into New Haven, specifically that it had crashed into a house in East Haven, very near the airport. And as you all have probably been hearing today, we had been receiving conflicting reports of how many folks were on the airplane and how many folks were in the house. And we're still receiving conflicting reports, and we've, as we typically do, we defer victim identification to the local authorities. In this case, the East Haven Fire Department is working with the Connecticut State Police Fire Marshal and the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner. Those three agencies are still on scene working to recover and identify victims, make notifications, and then release the names. So ultimately, any release of names would come from them. And again, we're hearing what you're hearing, that there was 2 or 3 in the house and 2 or 3 in the airplane, and we still haven't confirmed that. With that being said, basically tomorrow, our goal is to continue to support victim recovery until that's done. We're really in a support role for the state police and the fire department. When that's complete, we'll start documenting the wreckage. And today I met with, in addition to the first responders, met with a few gentlemen from the FAA. Also, the engine manufacturer, Honeywell, is sending representatives. And the airframe manufacturer, Twin Commander, is sending representatives as well. So we will be on scene for the next few days documenting the wreckage when we can. Within 5 to 10 business days, we'll have a preliminary report on our website, ntsb.gov. And then over a period of 6 months, as we gather information on both the pilot, the airplane, and the environment, and by the pilot I mean current, recent experience and overall experience, the airplane, recent maintenance experience, overall maintenance, and with the environment, air traffic control data, weather data, radar data. As we gather all of that, we'll compile a factual report that usually goes on our website in about 6 months. And then the actual safety board, a 5-member presidential appointee panel, actually issues the probable cause. And that whole process is about 6 to 12 months. You know, obviously this is day 1 of an investigation that's going to run 6 to 12 months, so I don't have a whole lot of information right now, but I'd be happy to answer any questions that you folks may have.
Can you confirm it was 2 young children, a 1-year-old and a 13-year-old?
Approach and whether weather was a factor.
We had heard it was the first approach, but that the type of approach it was a circling approach, meaning you fly towards one end of the runway and then you circle around to the other end. So the information we have was actually it's the first approach.
What would be a reason for a circle? So you're gonna pack it up, you guys?
It's a different type. There's a bunch of different approaches you can take into an airport. Sometimes airplanes will land on a particular runway because the wind favors that runway.
Lay out for us the complications with the fact that at this point you don't even know how many victims you have. I mean, and the process is happening now. In other words, you're not really going in there looking at the evidence yet because they're still trying to find bodies. Am I correct? Correct.
I did meet with them today. I did look at the airplane, the wreckage today, but we really didn't go into examining it and removing it. We're, again, sort of taking that as a second priority, with our first priority being to support the state police in recovering the victims.
Yeah, give me an idea on why the scene presents this kind of problem, what the logistics and what the scene looks like as far as what they're doing.
And I'm sure you folks may have seen some photos on the internet. The plane struck 2 houses. One of the houses was struck more severely, and the part of the plane is actually in the basement. And obviously, so some of the houses in the basement as well. So as I speak to you now, the state police are working with the fire department to go through the house to look for victims.
So you don't even know how many people have died?
Exactly. Exactly.
But wouldn't we know, based on when they took off, how many people were on the plane?
Not in a private flight. For an airline, you would have a formal passenger manifest, but for a private flight, you wouldn't necessarily have to have that.
Going back to his question before, is it possible that weather was a factor?
We are looking into that. We plan to, as one of the things we plan to do tonight and tomorrow, is to talk with the control tower over at New Haven to see what the controller saw, heard, anything out of the ordinary.
Did you hear anything about maybe they're running out of gas?
I had not heard that. I didn't hear. I did get a preliminary briefing from the tower that there was no distress call. The few witnesses that the state police are gathering statements from, there were no reports of a engine stopping or running out of gas. So no, we haven't had no reports.
There's some previous reports that this particular pilot had some problems in the past. Have you been able to look into that at all?
I haven't even had a positive ID on the pilot.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was your own personal observation? You said you briefly observed the wreckage. I mean, what did you make of it in your personal experience?
What I saw was that it was inverted with the left wing in one house, the right wing in the other, and I would say probably about 50 to 60% of it was consumed by fire, mostly the forward portion, forward of the wings. I was able to identify the two wings and the tail from what I saw, and with the forward portion being more buried in towards the basement of the house.
What can you tell us about this aircraft and about its flight data recorder and anything that can yield evidence of what happened?
It's a, I think the technical name for it is a Rockwell International 690B. It's more commonly referred to as a twin commander. You can order it in different seating configurations, but it's generally a 10-seater with 2 seats up front for a pilot or another pilot and a passenger, and then 8 seats behind. A twin turboprop, meaning turbo engines. It can have, it wouldn't necessarily have traditional flight recorders. It wouldn't have a black box, like a cockpit voice recorder or a flight data recorder. It might have a GPS like you would have in your car, that if a chip was recovered from that, we might be able to get some data out of that. So it could have some recording devices, but not traditional black boxes, as you would say.
So does that make it more difficult since you don't have a black box, since 50 to 60% of it has damage, and does that make your job that much more?
It does make it more difficult. Luckily, the New Haven Air Traffic Control Tower, I believe they're going to be able to provide us radar data, so that will help.
How low does that radar data go? Can you get pretty close to?
In that area, I don't know. Being close to the ocean, I would think that it could get lower than in a mountainous area.
Is there anything about Tweed New Haven that poses a particular challenge to twin-engine planes, or that is notorious for pilots, any difficulty that you've tracked over time?
Not that I'm aware of. I've been doing this 15 years, and I think this is my first trip to Tweed New Haven, so I personally don't
So
have.
we're not 100% sure, correct me if I'm wrong, if the pilot who was actually piloting this plane is the same person that the plane is registered to?
Correct. I have not confirmed any names, and I also still have not confirmed whether there was 2 or 3 in that plane or 2 or 3 in the house. So that's why I'm really cautious in deferring everything to the state police, because at this point I just don't know.
So we could potentially have 6 people here.
6, 5, 4, yep.
Do we know how long the plane was at Teterboro before it started on this leg?
I do not know. I do know that it took on fuel at Teterboro. I do know that the airport there checked the fuel, did not find any anomalies. They're providing us a copy of the fuel slip. No other airplanes that were fueled there reported any problems with the fuel.
So it's unlikely that it ran out of fuel.
We have no evidence that he ran out of fuel, and we do know that he topped off, or he added fuel before departure.
If this plane had a problem with one engine, is it the kind of plane that it could rely on the second engine?
To my knowledge, yes.
There were eyewitnesses who talked about how the plane was unusually low when it was getting near the runway. Any idea why they would have gone?
I'd have to see the radar data. If it was flying the approach like it should be, it may look low to a witness if it was coming into land.
Does the plane have any device where you transfer fuel back and forth, or is there anything that of that nature in that type of aircraft?
That aircraft very well may, and that's one of the things we'll be going over tomorrow when we meet with representatives from the aircraft manufacturer, the Twin Commander.
Okay.
So where do you go from here?
From here, the next few days is mostly going to be on scene, and really not doing much on the NTSB end until we can help the state police finish their job. And then once that happens, it's mostly documenting the wreckage, looking for anything out of the ordinary. I've already been in contact with the insurance company, the insurance adjuster, and they've been in contact with a recovery company that sort of specializes in recovering and storing aircraft wrecks. And so we'll probably be working with the insurance and the aircraft recoverer over the next few days to obviously get the airplane out of the house, to examine it both here and at a recovery facility at a later date.
How long do you think this process will take here in East Haven?
I would guess probably about 3 days.
And again, with the Twin Commander, known as a safe plane, pilots fly it all the time. What can you tell us about that kind of plane?
As I haven't heard anything unusual about it, there's really no, I mean, it's almost like saying, what about a Ford? I mean, there's really nothing that jumps out to me that there's anything unusual.
So at this point, we have at least 4 dead.
I would say 4 to 6. We don't know, and that we don't know.
Okay, one more question.
There's talks about cuts to Tweed New Haven. Do you guys know if they were fully staffed today, or if the cuts?
I do know that the tower was open and the controller was working and in contact with the airplane, radio contact, that the tower was operating.
Do you know if cuts have been made? Because there were talks about cutting staff at Tweed New Haven.
Do they mean
as part of the
controller staff or?
Yeah, some control tower staff and.
I honestly don't know. And like I said, I know there was a controller on duty and the controller was in contact with the airplane. Before I finish, I did want to just turn it over real quick to the mayor of East Haven, Joe Matura. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make a brief statement and give my condolences, first of all, to, and our hearts go out to the 2 families who were involved in this terrific accident here in our community. Our hearts go out to them. Secondly, I want to thank the FAA and the NTSB for coming here so quickly, and our hearts go out to the families. And I also want to thank the governor for all his assistance today. We have state, federal, and local officials, many towns who have committed their resources to our small community on something this large. We are having a vigil. The clergy in our community have called a vigil for tomorrow at 7 o'clock in the center of our town on Margaret Tucker Park, if any of you would like to come. And with that, again, our hearts go out to everyone, and thank you very much.
Do you know how the mom is doing?
I have spoken to the mom. I spoke to the mom a couple of times. All things considered, of course, she's devastated. Right now, the last time I understand, she was at the hospital being checked out. But all things considered, how any other mom would be. But she's doing okay.
Does she have family nearby to help her out? Or?
Yes, she does.
Do you know how many children she has?
No, I don't.
You said you're talking about the 2 families that your heart's go out to.
Yes.
You're talking about the pilot's family.
Pilot's family and the family here in East Haven.
And at this point, it's her 2 children that are unaccounted for, or if they've been?
Unaccounted for.
Is there a question about a 3rd person in the house?
You know what? We don't know how many. The NTSB, I think he answered it. Bobby answered it very clearly.
He said that they're handling it because they're not sure.
The NTSB and the state police are out there, and that's their investigation. And I don't want to give anything out that I'm not sure of, and I'm not sure of how many bodies.
The mother didn't tell you how many kids were in the house?
There could be, as Bob said, anywhere from I think 4 to 6. And that's what we're going to stay with until we get confirmation from the state police. And the state police are there investigating it. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
For those who will be attending.
All right, you've been watching a press conference by the NTSB on this plane crash earlier today in East Haven. NTSB investigators still at this hour saying they are still getting conflicting reports in terms of how many people were inside the house, how many people on the plane. They're saying between 2 and 3 in the house, 2 and 3 on the plane.
Yeah, our affiliate in Seattle saying that there were 2 people on that plane, the pilot and his son, and we heard there are apparently 2 children in that building. You heard the mayor there talking about the mother reacting how any other mother would be. Reports that she was outside yelling for help when she knew her kids were inside that burning building.